Hello, everybody. Hi!
It is so good to see you.
I always get so excited
Oh,
for you.
I know. I missed you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm like definitely exhausted.
Uh-huh. I'm sure you're getting there, huh?
Yes, it's like so funny because like I've always come to you being like, I have had trouble sleeping because of this problem with anxiety. Now it's like a whole different
You actually can't sleep. Yeah, big time. You've done so beautifully throughout your whole pregnancy. You've heard me say that I'm getting through it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, she like woke me up at 5 a.m. with the hiccups, and I was like, really?
Can you stop? Can you be quiet?
Oh, thanks. Um, well, I'm so excited to have you. I mean, obviously, you did such an amazing post on Frenshe with talking about chronic pain, and you've been such an important piece in my life and helping.
Hmm.
So, it's just like so great to have you be part of the Frenshe virtual read.
I'm so happy to be a part of it. Right when you told me about it, I'm grateful to you to making this sort of information accessible to people, especially during the pandemic. So I've been following along all the other women all week. You had such a fantastic lineup, so happy to be a part of it.
Aw, thank you. Well, I mean, you are like, I mean, I think I've mentioned this on my Instagram, but you have been such a important piece in my anxiety. And also just like you've been there through the hardest time, like losing Maui, and
Mhm.
could not have gone through it without you. So it's like, I just felt, when I was creating the Frenchie virtual refresh, and like you said, like there's so many people at home and dealing with anxiety and dealing with depression and probably chronic.
Right.
So it's like,
Mhm.
what can we do to um, but I wanted to ask some questions. So,
Yes.
how would you say, what does chronic
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ashley. You're breaking up a little bit. I can hear you kind of. Okay, you seem like you're back.
I was saying, what does chronic pain have to do with anxiety?
Okay. So, great question. Let me start with pain. Pain is a danger signal. That's why we have it. So, if you put my hand on a hot stove right now, my brain would register this is dangerous for you. You need to move your hand so that you don't cause further damage. So, pain is designed to protect us. And the mechanism that we have in our brains is two things. It's really flawed. So, have danger coming in that has nothing to do with physical threat. So if we're feeling threat around stress in our life, a psychological or emotional threat, that same alarm mechanism is going to go off. So once fear is inputted, the output is going to be pain. So the way that chronic pain and anxiety are connected is that anxiety can actually cause pain when there's no structural damage to the body at all. And a lot of people don't know that. So when they start experiencing pain in their body and they're going from doctor to doctor and no one is helping them and no one is educating them on the fact that pain can be caused and linked to our mental health, then they get really anxious about like what the heck is going on with my body and why can no one help me? So we call that the pain fear cycle. And it's why literally millions of people are stuck in chronic pain because this information and this diagnosis is not well known. And we're trying to get the research to catch up so that the medical community can start educating their patients better.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's like I had no idea that chronic pain was a part of anxiety. And
Yeah.
like I just remember having, like a neck issue, and I was just like, why is my neck always hurting? And I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
really well. And then I was introduced to you and you were like, oh yeah, that's a form of anxiety. And I was like, I was like,
But you took to it like
chiropractors.
I know. You took to it overnight. I remember saying that to you. And just for anyone watching who's concerned, I got Ashley's permission to share a little bit about her story for confidentiality purposes. I remember introducing it to you, and you were like, oh, I didn't know that, but that totally makes sense. And it just clicked in an instant. And I remember that session leading you through a meditation. You were like, okay, I just like feel better now. Is that going to stick?
Yeah. And it's like, it's so crazy. Like it was the only thing to help me really, because like
yes.
I've seen so many holistic doctors and chiropractors, got an MRI thinking like something was wrong with my neck. And then you were like, no, just try this meditation and it'll like down. And I was like, okay. And it was just like so much better from there on out.
Absolutely.
Like what's interesting too, like obviously being someone who has anxiety, what I really loved about one of the things you mentioned to me was sometimes it clicks on, like the brain clicks on when you're in an anxious kind of moment. You can click over that side and then you're like on alert. And so saying like right now, whatever has triggered it, you're high alert with anxiety. So you're like looking and scanning the world as if something's going to happen. And put it so like, when you just put it like that, I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm scanning thinking something's about to happen. Something's about to happen.
Yes.
Then when you realize like that brain clicks on, you realize that you just have to kind of click it off in some way.
Big time. People get
like,
sorry, what were you saying?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh no,
I got you again. Oh, good.
It was like
good.
I was like, oh, I now know what to turn off.
Yes. I think you're bringing up, I'm so glad that you remember that. And you're bringing up such a good point. I think people get tripped up on that, not recognizing that once you flip into threat mode, literally the entire filter of your experience is different. Like nothing in your life feels as good as it did 5 minutes ago when you felt safer. And sometimes, like if you have a friend, for example, who's really anxious about something, if they come to you, you can almost tell that they're seeing things through that filter because they're so intense about a particular topic. And they might ask like, should I do X, Y, or Z? And then what if this happens? And what if I'm not prepared for the next thing that comes around the corner? And everything is escalating so quickly that you almost have to take a back seat and stay grounded and saying, wait, I think we need to take a beat to reconnect to what's going on around us, because you are so far down a rabbit hole that the whole filter of your experience has changed. So I love that you were able to remember that and recognize that when you flip into threat, the first thing you have to do is get back to safety. You can't problem solve from a place of threat. You'll never get out of it.
No, and that's like, I think that, part of anxiety is obviously just being obviously feeling these symptoms and thinking something's really wrong with you. And then you're thinking this symptom is something else. And so when you just kind of put that like perspective, you're able to, like you said, you're able to like realize, okay, like I am okay. I'm safe. My little brain just clicked on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is just so helpful. Okay. So other questions that I have, how do you manage to forgive yourself for mistakes due to anxiety?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's so tough because people, especially who know that they have anxiety and are working on it and then engaged in some sort of behavior that makes them upset, like lashing out or having impatience with loved ones is a really common symptom of anxiety. And then it can be so hard, the shame spiral that happens from there. What I would say to that is you can't break free from anxiety using the same mechanisms that got you into anxiety. So if you're asking that question, it sounds like self-criticism is coming up for you. And if you bully yourself, if you hold yourself to such high standards without any wiggle room, that's not a roomy way to live. That's a way that's inviting threat. So just look at it like a challenge. If you do something, if you lash out in anger or engage in some other behavior that you feel shame around due to your anxiety, think of it as, well, this is part of the mechanism that keeps me in anxiety. So this is just another opportunity to have self-compassion for myself so that I don't get this far over my threshold again, or I don't get there as quickly.
Yeah, and I feel like just even acknowledging that you have anxiety and working on it is such an important, like, that's just so that's so important to yourself and self-love. And so there's going to be mistakes that you make. There's going to be like things that happen that you're like, oh man, like I'm so embarrassed by that or that. But like you really do have to you have to forgive yourself. You're working on it. Thing that like changes overnight. I feel like anxiety is, stems from maybe childhood or just obviously having it for so many years. And it's not like overnight, it just goes away. Like I still, I've worked so hard on myself, as you know, still anxious moments, which are very normal, I think. And so I think that it's just like, we need to give more self-love to ourselves and like, patience.
Oh, big time. Absolutely. And me too. I mean, sometimes my patients ask me, because I'm a recovered chronic pain patient myself. So they'll say like, what is it like to never have any pain symptoms anymore, to never get anxious? I'm like, I'm sorry, who told you that? That is like completely false. Yeah. The goal is not to like erase or eradicate your mind-body connection. It's just to get more in touch with the warning signs and then act on them so that you don't end up in an anxiety cycle or a pain fear cycle.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, so another question I have is, is there only one type of panic attack?
I'm going to go with, a panic attack is a panic attack. They can feel, some of them, if you're used to, unfortunately, if you're used to having a panic attack and you feel the symptoms coming on, you might be able to curb it more quickly and then have it sort of, the wave is a little bit smaller. Whereas if it's your first panic attack, I mean, my first panic attack, I remember so clearly texting my mom, like, Mom, I just wanted to say goodbye because I'm dying. And she was like, called me. She's like, what are you saying? I said, I can't breathe. The room is spinning. This can't be good. This has to be the end. So if it's one of your first few panic attacks, the wave is going to be huge. But all things considered, an anxiety attack is an anxiety attack. And the best cure or treatment for that is to get ahead of it, to get yourself into a situation where you're not so close to flipping over.
Yeah, I remember my first panic attack was in a plane, and
oh no, no,
like the worst place.
The way you can't get out. Yeah,
wanting to just jump out of the plane. Like, out of here.
Was it because you were flying? Was it because you were anxious from flying?
I mean, obviously I do get anxious from flying, but it was more about, I was doing this like presence process book, which was supposed to make me more present and present feelings of anxiety. Like was every morning I would do a meditation, and it was like something like I hadn't done a meditation that morning. And we were just like coming back from vacation, and I just, you don't pick the time when you have one. So it came out of nowhere. I was just like a snack. Like what was like, I don't know what
was the problem?
And it was just like, came on really fast. But because I turned to my husband, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, something's wrong with me. I was like, I can't breathe. And he was like, I think you're having an anxiety attack. Like do your meditation. And he encouraged me to breathe and meditate. And it was what you're saying is what got me into a wave versus like hitting the, top where I was, I actually like meditated and breathed through it, and I was able to like stop it early on. So it wasn't,
that's amazing.
But it was like, once you have one, then you have a fear of having one every single time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's awful. I mean, that's what panic disorder is. It's terrible.
I know. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so, it's crazy how it can then affect you just once you have one. So, but like breathing was so helpful. And then you've taught me some like tools to do as well. Just like really it's, I think about feeling safe, like you always say, like just safe and not feeling like threatened. And I really listen to my thoughts. If I start to feel anxiety, before it can get to a panic attack, what I was thinking, like what were my thoughts before? What has into this feeling, and what can I do to
Absolutely.
from, going over?
Flipping over.
Yeah.
But you're so good at that, Ashley. You're good at pairing the cognitive and the physical sides of anxiety. You're even doing it right now. You're talking about, I leaned into the sensations, I felt my body. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize, that there are two sides of anxiety. I think most of us focus on the cognitive piece because anxious thoughts are really loud, like intrusive thoughts and worry thoughts. That's where we spend a lot of time worrying about the worst case scenario or catastrophizing. But anxiety is a physical response first. Like, that's the reason that we have anxiety. It's a mobilization response, so that if you are facing threat, your body is ready to meet that threat and help you survive. That's what the fight or flight response is. I think a lot of people are familiar with that term, but they don't recognize that even day-to-day anxiety comes with a physical component. So sometimes people can have a lot more success calming their system down if they meet their anxiety where it's at, which is in your body first. Even before you have an anxious thought, you're going to have a physical response.
I'm seeing this comment right here, and it totally reminds me of me, but she's saying, what about OCD? Can that make you feel panicky? I suffer with OCD and it's very hard to deal with. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally have OCD. And yes, I get very panicky if like Chris moves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Put it back. It's
Yes.
anything that's changed. But what would you say,
Mm-hmm.
about, I feel like that's just another form of anxiety.
Totally. It absolutely is. What I say about OCD is that we as humans prefer, in a weird way, a contained threat as compared to an uncontained, really vague, big threat. So even if you don't meet like diagnostic criteria for OCD, I think a lot of us can hyper focus on any given situation that we're worried about. And it's like, we're really worried about it for a week. And then the next week passes and I'm like, yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I'm on to the next thing that I'm worried about. And that's because if we had to choose between, like, if I were to put you in a room right now and I would say, Ashley, something in this room could hurt you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Like, at any point, it might cause you harm. Versus me saying, like, Ashley, there's a poisonous spider in the corner of the room, top right corner, do what you have to do to survive. It's evolutionarily beneficial for us to see the threat. So sometimes we actually create that in our day-to-day life. We will create a threat, like a tiny little thing we can contain, so that we can worry about it and deal with like the massive uncontrollable anxiety that's building. I mean, hello, all of 2020 into this year. So I think a lot of people are dealing with it.
No, that's what another question is, just like how, just with everything that's happened this year and like with people staying home and just like having so much time. I mean, obviously, like, especially if you having to, like, your brain likes to jump to things. Like, you might think like, oh, I'm not anxious about this part, but then it jumps to another thing that it's anxious about. Like, what would you say? Like, how do you cope in this moment, in this time?
Okay, so there's some basic self-care tips I feel like we've all heard thrown out there a lot over the last year, and they're important. Like, go to sleep and eat something every once in a while and move your body. But I think my biggest tip for people is to help yourself feel empowered about what anxiety looks like, sounds like, and feels like for you. So again, recognize when you're having anxious thoughts and then pair it with what's going on physically in your body, and use simple, repetitive safety messages and simple, repetitive breathing exercises. We can even practice one later as a community if you want. But anxiety is coming from a place in our brains that's very young and very primitive. So it doesn't take rocket science or something really complicated to break you free from it. It takes simple, repetitive ground exercises that are accessible to everyone if you can empower yourself to understand it.
Yeah, I think that that's so true. And it's like, I remember early on in the pandemic when we were like first locked down, I would have these kind of like feelings of just like that, kind of like depressive feelings of being like, oh my gosh, we're not able to do what we normally do. And like, I've never been home this long. I've never, like, it's just like something where I that much free time. And and it was interesting that when my perspective changed about it, because as you know, like sometimes my anxiety can come from feeling stuck. So of course, like being in a moment where you feel stuck in this moment, that's going to trigger my anxiety. And so I had to
Mm-hmm.
realize, like,
Big
you know
time.
what, stuck. This is only a moment in time, and it's so important to remember, like, change happens all the time. And you know, this last year
Mm,
was a shit show, and it's been really hard. And that, you know, like I feel like when we think about it, instead of thinking that we're going to stay in that moment, it's like, no, this moment's only going to last so long, and then we'll move on from that, because
mm,
or we didn't have that moment. So I think it's always so good to remember, like, that we're not stuck and we aren't going to be
mm.
forever. Things will go back to normal eventually. We just have to get past it. And once you change that perspective, you feel a lot more freer and a lot less anxious about it, I think.
I think you're completely right. I feel like we can get through most things if we know there's an end point, like if you can see it, which I mean, coming back to chronic pain, that's why so many people struggle with chronic pain is it's chronic. They have never most people have not been told, "Hey, there's a treatment for chronic pain if it's related to your anxiety." If it feels like I've been in pain and I have no idea when it's going to end, that's when that desperation kicks in. But I think you're totally right. For most circumstances, if you can remind yourself, anyone can do anything for a week, for a month. Apparently, we can all do this for a year. Like we will normalize.
Yes, yeah. Okay, another question. Oh, are there foods that can help reduce anxiety?
So I'm always hesitant to give too much specific advice on foods because I think it can actually breed more anxiety for a lot of people to feel like I wasn't supposed to eat that, but I really craved it. There are definitely providers out there, both on the psychological side of things and physical medicine providers, who will suggest like an anti-inflammation diet, for example. But for me, I suggest eat intuitively, eat what makes you feel good, and then feel good about eating it. So I think the roomier you can get, again, so much of anxiety treatment is just making space for yourself, having compassion for yourself, having forgiveness for yourself. And I think that applies to food too.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would probably say is caffeine has been, you know, like, because I don't like to limit myself either with like diet on
Mm-hmm.
some things, but if I have too much caffeine, I for sure might feel
Oh, you
anxious.
feel crazy. Yeah, because it mirrors all of, right, the
Yeah,
jitteriness
it's
mirrors
like
anxiety. That's so true. Am I okay?
I'm like, what did I just have? I feel super. Um, and let's see.
I'm loving these. Where are they, did these all come from the community?
Yeah, it was just kind of like a bunch of different questions that we were able to
I
get,
love it.
and yeah. Oh, one is asking, when is it time to see a therapist?
Ah, that's one of my favorite questions. Okay, so the question itself needs to be broken a little bit because let's switch this back to physical health. I don't think we often hear when should I go see, like when would be the right time to see my primary care provider. It's just like you should go every year. You should get a checkup. You should be checking in on your physical health. And I think the same thing should be true of mental health. But instead, because I get this question so frequently, instead we take this approach of like, how far can I push myself down into my my own darkness, my anxiety, my depression, what have you, until I'm finally have to go see a therapist. Like, I
That's me.
promise it's not that bad.
Get a text being like, I need to see you next week.
You do that. Yes. Like, don't wait until you're at that point. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want a more targeted answer, like if it's affecting your daily function, like if you're losing your appetite, if you're not sleeping, those are signs that you're probably already past your threshold. But really, everyone should be checking in on their mental health at some point or points throughout their life.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And it's like, I feel like also, just knowledge, how they say knowledge is power in anything. So it's like learning about your anxiety, like you said, and learning those triggers and learning those feelings and sensations, but also just like, I remember even in the hardest time, you know, with the passing of Maui, it was just like you would send me articles on grief. And it was so helpful because it was like where I was heading. But I, you know, had never felt that before. And so, I mean, I've obviously grieved loved ones in the past, but it was just like Maui was so close to me. So it was just like having that and knowing like what was going to happen in the waves of it is what actually prepared me to deal with it versus like not knowing, not like understanding. And it was just like, it's just so helpful that, you know, that thing, those little things that you can send somebody can really like help them through, you know, those moments. So, yeah, I always believe in like learning all of that stuff and like having those, you know, just talking to you about anxiety, chronic pain, then, you know, I'm able to be like, oh, okay, this is what this is versus like, oh my gosh, what is this in my body? Like, why am I feeling this way? It's like, oh no, this is like something is making you more alert in this moment, you know, like, so it's so helpful.
Right.
And then there was another comment I saw and I really liked it. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Um, Oh, how can you prevent overthinking? It can be overwhelming, especially right now with being locked down alone with your thoughts. And that is something like we all definitely deal with. But how would you say you could prevent it?
Okay, so I want to break this up into having an external leaning out strategy and then an internal leaning in strategy. So if you get yourself to a place where you're hyper focused and you're just going around in circles and it starts feeling noisy, you can do one of two things. You can externally distract yourself out with healthy coping mechanisms. So literally just take a break. Get up, do something that's outside of your body. Watch a TV show, read a book, move, call a friend, force yourself to get out of your mind. So that's external. If you're feeling like you want to challenge yourself for some of the self-recovery tools and lean in, you can make the switch internally from mind to body. So ask yourself, can I pause on this circular noise and connect with what's going on in my body? Either connect with your breath or connect with any sensations of like tightness or jitteriness that you have going on. So that would be my answer there, to pick a route and give it a shot.
Yeah, those both really help me. Like if I'm feeling that anxious energy, I'll be like, okay, let me go for like a hike or because I have that kind of energy right now, or let me organize my closet or distract myself. Like those are healthy distractions. And then, yeah, then there's times where I'm like, you know what? I need to meditate and just breathe. And like, I just feel like meditation so it stops you from thinking. It wants you to release those thoughts in the moment. It's like the more we can be more present, I feel like the better we are with anxiety. So it's just like, well, what is the one of the tools you can teach us on here? You
Oh,
want to do
yeah.
any type of
Fun.
guys?
Okay, so yes, I do. I do. Would you mind? I mean, I can lead it for anyone who's listening, but would you mind being my demo person? I can lead us in a little meditation.
I'm
Okay,
here for them so,
perfect.
and for myself.
Perfect. So, this is a technique that helps you connect with any sensations of anxiety that may or may not be present. And it's pretty simple and pretty brief. So, I'm going to ask you and anyone else who wants to join in to go ahead and close your eyes. And then I want you to start just by taking a couple of really nice, deep breaths on purpose. So allowing yourself to transition from this external focus of us chatting into a quieter inner focus, finding the sensation of your breath, taking a few really nice, deep, slow, intentional breaths. And after you've taken a couple of nice, slow breaths, I'll ask you to keep your eyes closed, but simply allow yourself to find the natural rhythm of your breath now. So fall into that natural rhythm, keeping the focus gently on the sensation of your breath as it comes in and as it goes out. You're not chasing your breath down. You're not changing or controlling it. You're simply following it, like you're playing follow the leader with the sensation of your breath as it comes in and out of your body. This is home base. It's just you and your breath. There's nothing to see or do or worry about here. And then I want to invite you to keep your eyes closed, but simply expand your attention for me. So expand your attention out to see if you can notice any other sensations that are present for you right now. If it's helpful, you can scan your body from head to toe like a slow moving photocopier, seeing if there's any sensation of tightness or heaviness or jitteriness or any extra energy anywhere. And once you've found that sensation, just settle in on it. You're not trying to chase it. You're not trying to change or control it. You're just trying to connect with the sensation that's present for you right now. And if the sensation shifts, just shift your focus along with it. And if it stays the same, just be gentle, be easy, hang out with it. Just stay here for a couple more seconds, allowing whatever the sensation is going to do, it's going to do. It's not your responsibility to control it. It's just your responsibility to tune into it as a way of connecting to your body right now. Good. And then with your eyes closed, come back to home base, come back to your breath. Find your breath again. It hasn't left you. That sensation of your breath is still there for you. Reconnect to your breath. Feel the sensation of your breath as it comes in and out. Come back to home base. And then we'll wrap up the same way we began by taking a couple of nice deep breaths on purpose, breathing in, now taking in really deep, energized air. Letting go of any worries or concerns or tensions on the exhale. Good. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes.
So good. It's so funny because I felt like a little bit of anxiety in my chest whenever I'm doing these. Obviously, with Mercury in retrograde, I'm like, I hope it works out. I hope people can see. It's like anxiety is like,
tech issues are so stressful.
I know. That was just like so nice and like completely took care of it.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, just it's simple. Just find that sensation. And that's what I think people get tripped up on, like, what does it mean to connect with your body? I mean, actually connect with what it feels like. Feelings are felt in the body. So it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Well, and also it's like, I feel like the anxiety happens more when you're trying to not acknowledge that feeling. Like, I think that when you acknowledge that sensation,
Absolutely.
that feeling, like, get past it so much easier. So, yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Doing this, where can people find you?
Yes, it's so fun.
Like, is there...
Catch me if you can, because my research projects have been taking me, well, I literally do not stay in the same state for more than 2 seconds, but you can follow me on Instagram. My website is linked, so you can stay in touch with me there, and I'm going to be putting up some more recovery tools and resources for people up there.
Amazing. Yay. Well, thank you so much.
So good to see you, Mama. Yes.
Oh, we'll have to catch up soon.
Yes, please. Okay. Good to see you all.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully you have an amazing Saturday.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.